Here is another interesting JavaScript question. Now this is also going to test your knowledge quite a lot. Now before I go ahead and show you the answer to this, you can just pause the video and try to figure out the answer on your own. And if you get it right, then that's well and fine. But if you did not get it right and you want the explanation to it, then just hold on a bit. I'm going to explain you what's happening here bit by bit. So I'm just going to run the code first, and the output that we get is 6. So the last console log gives the output as 6. So if you got the same output, that's great. If you did not, then let me help you understand what's going on over here. So first of all, here you can see we have promise.resolve1. So when you do promise.resolve1 and then after that you use .then, this one just gets passed to the value of .then. What I mean by that is, let me just take this over here and I'll comment this entire part. My goal is to help you understand this line by line. So what I'll do is I'll paste this and then I'll write .then, I'll pass in the value, and then I'll const .log value. Alright, here you can see no value is being passed, right? But in this example, I have used promise.resolve1, then I'm passing the value, and that value is being console logged here. So let me just run this, and we should get the value, we should get the output as 1. Alright, you can see we get the output as 1. So this means when I do promise.resolve and then I use .then, so once we use resolve, it is going to go to the .then part, right? If you're using .then after that, and in case you use reject, then it would go to the catch part. But since I'm using resolve, then the 1 gets passed to the value in the .then, and we are getting the console log as the value, which is 1. But what's happening over here in this actual code is, I'll just comment this out now. So what's happening over here is we are passing 1 over here, but we are not utilizing the parameter in this .then. So had we been using a value parameter over here and then returning that value itself over here, then this entire part would have returned number 1. And since we are not using any value over here and we are directly just returning 2 in this callback, so this 1 has no meaning over here. So basically 1 is being passed to this .then, but you're not utilizing the value of 1 in this callback, and rather we are just returning another different value. So by the time we reach over here to this .then, the value that this .then receives is 2 and it's not 1. And just to help you and just to show you that, what I'll do is I'll copy this, I'll comment this out, replace it with this part. Alright, so this is the first 3 lines, and what I'll do is here instead of 3 I'll just add another callback and I'll say console log of val, and here I'll place the val. So now you'll notice the 1 goes here, but since here we are not adding the parameter and returning some other value, so this .then, when the chaining happens, when it goes from this .then to this .then, it looks at its previous .then and it checks, it sees that we are getting 2. We are not getting the value returned from line number 8. We are getting 2 returned. So this value becomes 2 in that case. So when I console log now, you'll see the value come out as 2. There you go. So this 2 got chained down here. So now this 1 has no meaning at all. So this means right until here, if there was a callback over here in line number 3, if there was a callback and it had a value parameter, then the value would have the value of 2, right? But the problem here is, here we are just directly writing 3. We are not passing a callback, nothing of no sort. So basically we are not utilizing the value at all in this .then. What would happen in that case? So to help you understand that, I'll just comment this again, I'll comment this out. Now one thing to remember is, if you're not passing a callback and returning anything in .then, then it has no use. So if I pass .then of 3 over here, it's going to do nothing. It's not going to send anything from here into this .then. Like, this is completely useless. It does not do anything at all. So what happens is, when we chain on towards the next .then, it's going to go up and check what the value is. But then when it goes up, it sees that there is no callback over here. There's no callback returning anything over here. It's just a normal value. So it does not take this value 3. So what happens is, when we go to line number 3 from line number 4, it sees that this part, this .then itself isn't returning anything. This just has a value of 3, and that does nothing for the .then, because the .then requires a callback function that returns a value for the next .then to receive it. So when it sees that this isn't returning anything, as I explained previously, if I use .then value console log value, then this .then over here in line number 2 is passing in the value of 2 to this .then. But since we are not utilizing that value here, so we are not able to see 2. But 2 is still being passed to this .then, right? So since 2 is being passed from this .then, but it's not being utilized here at all, when this line number 4 gets activated, when we reach line number 4, the value over here corresponds to the last value that was returned from the last dot then. So this dot then returned a value of 2, which got chained over here, even though it's not being utilized. When we go to line number 4 and we use the value in the callback, it takes the last value which was returned from the dot then, which is nothing but 2. So that means in line number 4, the value is nothing but 2. So over here, you can see this is also a callback, and we are returning value into 3. And as I said, value is 2. So 2 into 3 is going to give me 6. And now just to prove you that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove this. I'm going to hide this here. I'm going to comment this part out. Now you're going to see that when I, let me just console log this part, in fact. So now you'll see that value is 2. So if I, this value is 2 and the total console log should give us 6. So if I run this, there you go. You can see this is 6. So this means until here, we are returning the value of 6 because here value is being passed, which is 2, and 2 into 3 is 6. So means this dot then is returning the value of 6. And since we are returning from a callback, so this 6 value is going to be passed to the next dot then. It's going to get chained down there. I'm just going to comment this back out again. I hope you're understanding this well and fine because I'm going line by line here. So now we are returning 6 from here. Right, from line number 4 we are returning 6. So this dot then, line number 5, is receiving 6. Alright, but as you can notice over here as well, we are not passing a callback. We're not passing a callback and returning anything. So this means that 6 is being returned over here, like 6 from here, from line number 4, 6 is being returned to line number 5, which means 6 is being passed to line number 5, but we are not utilizing it in any way at all. Similar to how this was happening over here. Like 2 was being returned from this dot then, but it wasn't being utilized over here. But that doesn't mean 2 wasn't being passed down to this dot then. It was. And now similar to line number 3, line number 5 is also going to do the same thing. Promise.resolve is just going to make the state of that promise as fulfilled. But since we are not returning anything and dot then requires you to return something if you want to use that value while chaining, which we are doing over here, we are adding another dot then after this dot then in line number 5. We are chaining this dot then again, right? So if you want to use that value from line number 5 in line number 6, then you needed to return something over here, but we are not returning. So similar to how it happened in line number 2 and 3, the value that line number 4 returned, which was 6, gets passed down here. It's not utilized, but it is chained down over here. And then when it comes to this dot, then it sees that this is also not returning anything. So it's just going to chain down the previously returned value down to its next dot then. So this means that line number 6 will also receive a value of 6. All right. So, and when we do console log here directly, this is same as saying this. This is the same as saying value and console log of value. Like these two syntaxes are completely same. So I'll just remove this back again. When we do console log, it's going to print the value of 6. So if I just run this, you can see we get the value of 6. So this means 6 was being chained down till here. And if you just want the proof for that, what I'll do is I'll also show you something else. What I'll do is I'll copy this entire thing. I'll comment this out. And over here, I'm going to paste that. And now I'll show you what would have happened had I returned this promise.resolve. So let's say I'm returning this promise.resolve of 4. Now, if you're returning promise.resolve of 4, you need to know that when you do promise.resolve of any number, it returns you an object, right? So it returns you an object with the value 4 in it. All right. So when we do dot then console log in this case, since in the above dot then it is returning a value of object 4. And when I do console log, as I said, it's equivalent to passing a callback and console logging value. So in the dot then when I'm returning a promise like this, promise.resolve, this gets fulfilled and the value of 4 gets passed down to this. A value of object 4 gets passed down to this. Now, just to show you in the output, this is going to print out 4. I'll run. And you can see this gives me 4. And now just to give you a little more clarity, what I'll do over here is I'll remove this callback. I'll write console.log and I'll just console log the promise.resolve. And for now, I'll just remove this last line. All right. Now, if I console log this promise.resolve, you see what we'll get. We are getting a promise and this has an object of 4. All right. So this has an object of value 4 and this object of 4 gets passed down to the value that we have in this callback. As I said, if you don't pass a callback over here and directly write console log, it is going to mean that it's printing out the value itself. So now this proves that when I return this, when I return promise.resolve as a callback, it passes down the value of 4. As I had shown you just now, if I remove this console log and I do promise.result of 4, then in this case it is returning the value of 4, the object of 4. So 4 gets returned here, and then console log just ends up printing that 4. Now this is different from the question, but I showed you this scenario so that you could understand things better. But in the actual code that we are trying to solve, the actual question that we are trying to solve, over here we are not passing any callback over here like we try to do over here. So that means even though this has the promise object value of 4, we are not returning it. So this console log is going to take the last relevant value, which was nothing but 6, which had chained down from line number 4 to line number 5. And since this is not returning anything, so the last dot then is going to take the last previous chained dot then value, which is nothing but 6. So when I run this, we get the output as 6. This can be a little confusing at some times, and that's why I decided to show you all such different examples and make you understand line by line what is happening in each line, so that things get more clearer to you. So yeah, these type of questions are quite tricky, and these get asked quite often in many JavaScript interviews. So it's pretty good to know about all these beforehand, as they'll help you a lot, not only while you build your projects, but also conceptually and during interviews. So I'm going to make a large series based on many such questions of similar types. So if you're interested, don't forget to like and subscribe. And as usual, stay tuned for more.